All you guys, I missed the memo. Everyone's wearing a hoodie. What's going on? Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Heroes for Quarantine podcast. I missed the memo. I missed the hoodie memo. Although Andre's wearing the right white hoodie, the rest of you guys are incorrect. So
Moon Knights.
Typical John can't contain his bit for longer than like 10 seconds. Like,
It's hot in here.
Oh God, I can't do it. I can't commit to the bit.
To be fair, if I was wearing the hood, I probably would have been like that the entire time as well. Like I wouldn't have broken character. So I'm glad I didn't do it. So thank you everyone for joining us. Our discussion of Moon Knight episode 1. I'm your host, Dupe. With me are both the owners and proprietors of Heroes World, that be Andre and John. Please say hello to the world.
Hello.
And our resident Prince of Mischief, Mr. Rob Cadet.
What's up?
There we go. Thank you for joining us. One of those things where, to be fair, I did have my hoodie, but I did open a note inside, Rob, and the note, of course, was from Vanis. And Vanis was like, wrote a note, again, in his own blood, and it wrote, "Oh, I should have really known by the time you drove me home, by the vagueness in your eyes, your casual goodbyes, by the chills of your embrace, the expressions of your face that told me maybe you might have some advice to give. How'd it be so insensitive?" So, again, what does that mean? Who knows? If you know even what that comes from, let me know in the comments below, because I don't know. We are here to talk about Moon Knight, the new Marvel offering that is clearly unlike anything else. So I'm going to get everyone's thoughts here. It's going to be a very interesting discussion because after watching this, I was like, well, how am I supposed to feel? So, Sean, before we get to you, which I'm going to bring back the bit about tell us what happened in this episode without telling us. I'm going to give you a second to think about it. But Andre, before we jump to that, who is Moon Knight for those uninitiated?
Who is Moon Knight? Okay, comic book version. There we go.
Yeah.
That's Moon Knight right there. The man in the middle holding the grenade is Mark Spector. He was a mercenary, quite a bad guy, ran with guns for hire, but he gets betrayed by his fellow mercenary bands, and he gets shot in the back in Egypt under the statue of Khonshu, the spirit or the moon god of vengeance, who basically makes him his avatar, his fist, and reincarnates him. And he has the powers of the moon god. And when he comes back to the United States, he creates a new persona, the millionaire, Stephen Grant, who you see with Marlene there on the cover of the classic Moon Knight from, I think that's 78, I believe. And he has other personas. That's the cab driver there. I'm going to get his name wrong. I think it's Jake Lockley, but I might. So Moon Knight was a really cool character because he stood for justice, and he would put on these other personas in order to get information, in order to fit into different places. As his career went in the comics, it was turned out that he has multiple personality disorder, and that's why each one of those personas seems very, very different and vivid. One of the great comic arcs was by Brian Michael Bendis with amazing art. The Daredevil duo, Alex Maleev, they did an arc where Moon Knight thought he had Punisher, Captain America, and Wolverine in him, and he would switch powers. But anyways, we saw that in the Disney Plus show. He is a hero with a split personality as well as supernatural background. So there's a little bit of a Moon Knight to bring you up to speed.
And then of course, Mr. Knight.
Mr. Knight, yes, the newest persona. Warren Ellis wrote that. Really cool take on him, and we see that in the current run. John's got an image up there. That is written by Jed McKay, a local Canadian talent. I have a chance to meet him. The book is on fire right now. Mr. Knight is a cool persona, but still has that vengeance angle, but he's helping more people. He's a protector of a city block. So very cool. If you want to jump into Moon Knight, that's the current run right there.
He is a consultant who, if you see Moon Knight, say hello, or Mr. Knight. If you see Moon Knight, shoot on sight. So that's the difference between him and the two.
Can I quickly interject and say that, John, if you could put up the first cover again, the original one. Now, I haven't taken a lot of time ever looking at these covers. I've seen this. I'm very familiar with the cover. But when Andre said, first of all, that he was holding a grenade, I never knew that. But even on top of that, I didn't know that all three... By the girl in the red dress. I'm the guy from the Matrix. I was the Mark. I'm like, all three dudes? I didn't know that was the same guy. I have seen this cover a million times. When Andre said that, I was like, boom. And one reason I'm bringing it up is, one, I'm self-deprecating, but two, I'm sure there's other people who are going to be listening or watching this who are like, holy shit, I had no idea that was the same dude. Neither did I. So I'm really glad Andre told us.
All right, John.
That was all impromptu off top of Andre's head. He didn't prepare for that, so that's why Andre is the man.
John, stop stalling. Tell us what happened in this episode without ruining it. I see what John's doing. John's pontificating, going, and just going off and be like, you know what? Rob also has wonderful hair. You just gelled it very nice today.
He's a good guy.
Tell us what happened, John. This is the bit. We're back. We're back, baby.
Okay, so Moon Knight episode 1, we are introduced to Mark. No, we're not introduced to Mark Spector. We're introduced to
5 seconds in
Steven. Yeah. Steven, the one of the money pulse personalities that Andre has mentioned here, trying to go about his day in the life of being a museum gift shop seller. And you find out something is not quite right. He seems to have issues with sleeping and losing track of time and things like that, so much so that he's chained to his bed and taped into his room at night, wondering what's going on. Things are happening that he's not familiar with. And then we do meet what potentially is the major, I don't know if he's the major villain or not, which is Ethan Hawke's character. What's his name? Arthur Harrow. Yeah. A very kind of biblical-ish type character, but and then a whole bunch of craziness ensues. We don't even know what's going on because it would appear that something is happening where this Steven guy is losing certain moments in his life. I don't know if we want to get into spoilers.
No, non-spoiler, John. This is fine. That's fine. You've done your best. I appreciate it.
The episode is kind of semi-hard. No, it's not. The episode is semi-hard to describe, though. You have to give me.
Rob, why don't you describe it then? Why don't you do this one?
Look at Rob. Give him a second.
Do what John could do.
Look at him for a second. Pause.
Okay. So this is a story that kicks off a 6-episode arc where our titular hero is Stephen Grant. He is a clerk in a London museum selling trinkets. And is trying to navigate the social norms of a world that he finds himself as a visitor because he is losing track of time and himself. The world around him is starting to shift and crumble in a way that he doesn't understand. And other nefarious forces seem to be after him, and he's wondering, who exactly am I?
Oh, nefarious forces. I like it. Okay, I'll give you that.
Someone looked at thesaurus before coming on. All right. Well, thank you both. Thank you all three for your little lobs of information. John, we're gonna go back to you because I want to know your thoughts. I think out of all of us, you were pretty jazzed about this show. Episode 1 of this show came out. What is your thoughts about episode 1?
In general, I did enjoy it. I know a lot of people are questioning if they should have done multiple episode drops and things like that. I feel like we're a little spoiled with all these shows getting multiple episodes. So I kind of feel like maybe we should try just an episode a week and see if we have the attention span to stick with it. So they did leave out a lot of bits in this episode, bits that usually I need to keep attention. So almost all your major action scenes are almost plucked out of this episode because of the story, I guess, that they want to tell. But I feel like we all kind of know what's going on, so it might have been semi unnecessary to do that. But overall, I really like Oscar Isaac. I thought I was going to say the wrong name. He's super charming as always. I do tend to like the first half of the episode a little bit better than the back end of the episode. But overall, I'm pretty happy. Does it beat Falcon and Winter Soldier or Hawkeye for me for a debut episode? Not quite there yet. I think I'm gonna have to see some more of the Moon Knight action, but those are my general thoughts of the first episode.
Rob, as we go to you, and then we'll finish off with Andre.
I really enjoyed this episode. I've watched it 3 times. I've never done that on a So there is a lot that when I first saw it, I was like, okay, cool. I enjoyed it. I was a little bit the idea of him phasing out, like he's essentially falling asleep, and then all of a sudden he wakes up. And as John said, the action has already happened. You don't get to see it. And that bit kind of goes on one too many times. That was upon my first viewing. When I watched it again from a different angle, I turned the TV that way. But when I was watching it, again, there is so much going on in that in the show. There is a lot of imagery in the background that I never noticed on the first time going. I mean, there's a lot of like archways and moons. Like there's a lot that goes on that's really important in the background that tells its own story and helps propel the story. And I found myself drawn more to Oscar Isaac's portrayal as Stephen Grant, even though, there has been some discussion with respect to his accent. It's not a Londoner accent, right? Like, he's doing an outside of London accent, more of a Cockney accent. But I found it to be really funny. Like, I thought his humor in this was surprisingly charming. Like, for the moment of him waking up in the field in Bulgaria or wherever he was, and he's, he's waving and the guy's waving and starts shooting, or even his interaction with Donna. Like, there was, and talking about the steak stuff. Like, I just found that he was really funny. Like, I was engrossed with him. And I thought Ethan Hawke did like a pretty decent job introducing a villain without, you don't really know what his motive or purpose is, right? Like, my son, when we were watching it, he's like, at the beginning you see him smashing the glass and he puts it into his sandals. He goes, why would he do that? I'm like, he's a bad guy. Like, good guys don't do that, but we don't know why he's a bad guy yet. And maybe he's not, right? Like,
I do that in the morning with Legos, Rob.
Yeah,
Legos,
well, yeah, our kids
are up.
So overall, I really liked it. And again, there's a lot in this show that asks you to pay attention, including the end scene with the mirrors, like the reflection of Stephen Grant. And then all of a sudden, when it's Mark Spector, like, you don't see his reflections behind him. Like, there's a lot going on with that. So I was very impressed with it. And I cannot wait for episode 2.
We're going to jump to Andre now. No spoilers, of course. What are your thoughts on your
initial thoughts? I don't know. I didn't know what to expect going in. I only ever watched the very first trailer that Marvel did. And I didn't want to watch anymore because I did want to try and judge it for what it was. I didn't feel that this episode was too long, but I felt that it accomplished nothing, nor did it establish anything. And I think, thinking back now that you guys mentioned, like, the other Disney shows, I actually think that this is the worst first episode of any of the Disney TV shows so far. Not to say, like you guys talked about the performances, those were very good, but I don't know, from a hook and sinker and reel people in, does it give you enough to be like, I'm going to watch this because it's interesting, or people just going to watch it because, it's the next Marvel thing, I have to watch it. And I think there's a part of that going on. I think Marvel's got this thing where it's in everybody's hooks before they know, they just want to watch it, and I don't know if they're watching it because it's good, or because they think it's going to get good, or because they don't want a fear of missing out because it could reveal something for something else. So, that was kind of my first impression. Not overly, not only impressed, but there was moments that I liked about it, and we'll get to those later. I don't want to do any spoilers.
Yeah, of course. John, as we want to go into a deeper dive discussion, what do you give this bad boy out of 10? And as we know, John's math doesn't matter.
Yeah. So you can average it out at the end of this. But
how, John? We don't know how your math averages out.
You can't.
Don't
based on like I 100% we see what Andre is saying. Like the cast, I think, does a better job than maybe the material per se. So much so that I actually had to kind of pause in the middle of the episode and kind of come back to it because it was kind of losing me a little bit. And I was like, okay, I gotta sit down and focus on it. So Oscar Isaac, super charming. I think I'm gonna give this a 7 out of 10 for a debut episode.
Rob?
Yeah, I think it's a solid 8. I think it's a solid 8 episode. Yeah.
Andre?
Yeah, it's a tough one because I think visually it's good. Like Rob said, there's a lot to see in the background and stuff like that. Visually, it's good. The acting's good. I would say the pace is off, and some of like the information. So I don't know. I'm really kind of torn on what to give it. I would probably say maybe a 6 out of 10 for this first episode.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's interesting you say this because I like Rob, I didn't watch it 3 times. I watched it twice. It was one of those things where when I'm going into the show, it was like it's gonna be a weird, trippy experience. It's gonna be Memento-esque, and I went in with that mindset, going, "Hey, episode 1's probably, I guess, maybe giving the showrunners a little more runway to say, when you add it all together, it will make sense." Hopefully, in my mindset, I'm like, okay, this is supposed to be disjointed. I imagine the first 2 episodes are going to be one perspective of Grant, and then the next 2 will be Mark Spector, and then the last 2 will be a free for all. Like you just wanna. They're just trying to work things out and trying to get you more kind of confused, just as he is, and perhaps perspective. Because as to Rob's point, like I was confused half the time watching him because half the times it was mirrored. Like, is it the ground? Like, especially was talking that stand man. I was like, that perspective was actually the ground perspective because you see the leaf, and I'm like, oh, I don't even know what's going on. Like, there's so many weird perspective shakes right now, and I guess it's supposed to emulate someone with the disorder, that not knowing what's reality, what's in place. I think visually they did a lot of things right, but I think from story, I think we've all agreed that some of these Marvel shows start off so good and then they fall apart. Maybe this Bucks
Loki.
where it starts slow and it actually crescendos the way we want it to crescendo. So I think I'm gonna give it a good 7.5, like in the middle. Like I think it's a very thinky show at this standpoint, and I think there's more to unravel. Just like like you'd say, like an onion. There's a couple more layers to go. So we're gonna go full spoilers because I think I want to ask a lot of questions to people and get some thoughts because there are some big questions here. So if you haven't watched the show, please do yourself a favor, pause it, come back. If you have seen it, welcome. We're going to continue talking. If you haven't watched it, you just want to hear our thoughts, cool, man. You do you. Cool beans. So here we go. We're full spoilers. John, what did you like? What did you didn't like? Give us your shtick.
Yeah. So overall, like I said, I definitely do tend to like the front end of the episode more so than the back end. Like Rob said, I think they kind of went to this gimmick of he doesn't know what just happened a little too many times. Like I feel like they could have showed us like. I feel like the audience knows what exactly is going on. So what I really liked about the episode, I do like the little tidbits of Egyptian history and stuff like that. I feel like it's not something I'm super familiar with. Like the Greek gods and all that mythology seem to get a lot of the attention and stuff like that. So I'm interested to get more of that if they start talking more about that. But generally, I feel like the Moon Knight book is kind of like treading in that territory. So if you like the show, definitely check out the books when you have a chance. I really like the Ethan Hawke. Rob mentioned he's already selling this kind of like villainous character. He's not kind of going overboard with it. He's just kind of like you're not even quite sure. I'm not even quite sure if he's like the full out villain of this yet. So we'll see how that goes.
And to your point, John, it's the one nice thing about having Arthur Harrow as a villain is that he was only in one comic. Like, as Andre knows, like he's not really a mainstay. So whatever you do with him, there's not like an Arthur Harrow stand and be like, well, actually, he can't do this or blah, blah, blah. Like, it's kind of a clean slate in terms of like, you can have a guy, you can kill him, you can do whatever you want, no one cares. It's the difference between him and Bushman, because if you're like, oh, Bushman's already been done, and Luke Cage kind of has a lot of things, it's like there are people that care about that character, but no one cares about Arthur Harrow. So whatever Ethan Hawke does and whatever his interpretation, it's like, cool, whatever you want, because it's, I guess, the counterpoint of what we had the discussion last week with Halo. It's like, these are the characters you're messing around with and we know so much about them. Here's a character we know nothing about. Do whatever you want. It's all good.
Yeah. It seems like they're really shy when they kind of take characters like that. They don't have like preconceived set layouts for the
rules.
Yeah. I feel like Moon Knight kind of treads a little bit on that, but I barely even recognize them. It took me a second. I think I finished the episode before I was like, Oh wait, Ethan Hawke's supposed to be in. Oh, he was that guy. Again, Oscar
I was
Isaac.
like, I'm gonna get my episode. I'm gonna get my movies before sunset ready, so he's gonna sit back and watch that movie.
Yeah.
With my reality bites.
Oh man, I like he's in Training Day, right? He's
Yes.
That's where I'm.
John, don't even ask. Don't even say it out loud, John. Of course, he's in Training Day.
Yeah. I'm just making sure I'm not mixing him up with somebody else. But I'm like, this is the guy from Training Day, right? Guess he didn't have face. Anyways, Oscar Isaac, like I said, super charming. I really like the scene. I like a lot of the scenes where he's basically just talking to himself. So he's sitting there with that street performer who's like looks like a statue. He's pretty funny. He drops like little stuff like, oh, don't forget the tip, all that kind of stuff. And then there's another scene where he's like ordering a steak and he's like, what cut of the steak you want? He's like, the best one. And then he's like, how do you want it done? Like, I want it done good, and that kind of stuff. That was really funny. And I'm sure they're just gonna let him cut loose on that type of stuff. And then the funniest or the greatest thing about the episode for me was freaking Donna. Like I know everyone hates her and it's all over Twitter and stuff like that, but that's a sign of when these actors and actresses can really nail these types of parts. When people start just hating them, like I'm sure her Twitter is probably just like, I hate you, you're the worst and all that kind of stuff, just like Carlton and the new Bel Air show and stuff like that. So kudos to these actors.
Nobody is tweeting that guy because nobody's watching.
Everyone is tweeting that they hate Carlton so much, but it's a sign that these guys are really they're
doing their job.
Nailing.
Just like Joffrey from Game of Thrones. That dude quit acting because everyone hated him so much.
Oh man, that guy, like that's crazy. And then or things that I'm concerned about. I am concerned a little bit. I got a little bit of a Venom vibe. If you guys have seen Venom, with the whole kind of like the guy talking in his
John, that
kind of stuff. No, I said I'm getting a little bit of it. I'm a little bit worried about it because the Venom thing didn't quite work all the way for me, so I'm a little bit concerned about it. But
he hasn't asked him to eat any chickens yet. We're fine.
No, yeah, he's kind of like,
I'm like,
the idiot's back and stuff like that. It's kind of like, okay, but
it's true. He is an idiot. So this is not. Yeah. This is like a thing. So yeah. I don't mind that compared to we saw, as we discussed in our Venom 2 review, that shtick got old real fast.
So that's what I'm concerned about it, but it didn't like. I don't hate it right now. So, anyways, those are my overall thoughts of episode 1.
Rob?
I'm just actually going to piggyback onto John's last point. I have to oftentimes remember that even though I'm not a Moon Knight stan like you guys might be, or some of the people who are watching this who might be really, really deep into the character and know that lore, I have a vague familiarity with it. Do you know what I'm saying? So I'm aware of the personality disorder or dissociative disorder as a character vice. But like there's a lot of people who don't know that. And so like my 13-year-old son, when we were watching it afterwards, we go take the dog for a stroll and he's like, is that kind of like Venom? Is that what was coming out? Like a symbiote? And I was like, no, it's not. And I had to explain to him what a personality. So I can appreciate why John would say that, because we sometimes have to remember that we're not laymen when it comes to some of the source material, right? So, but yeah, so as I said at the beginning of my thoughts, I felt like him phasing out, like passing out, and it became a bit too long in the tooth for me, like that idea of things. I thought it was really well done how they did it. When he woke up I'm just going to say it's Bavaria because I don't know where the hell he was, and his jaw was all messed up, I was like, oh, like it just looked horrible, right? But I love, that's the voice of Khonshu, right? And I think it's F. Murray Abraham.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah. And also they've dialed the treble on his and the bass on his voice, but man, he sounds so good. Like I thought it was funny, right? It didn't have the schlockiness or shtick of Venom. It wasn't Tom Hardy doing it. Do you know what I'm saying? So I'm glad it was F. Murray Abraham as opposed to Oscar Isaacs doing a deeper voice for himself.
Yeah. John, you would know him from Last Action Hero, but that's besides the point.
Oh. Or Homeland.
Homeland, Star Trek Insurrection. Come on, they're big hits right there.
Overall, like there's a lot in Stu. You said there's a lot going on with that they're laying of stuff, and I'm hoping that they will explain a little bit of it, because I get the notion he wakes up, he's tied himself to the bed and everything else, and then and I thought it was really weird that he had the sand around his bed, and then like for a guy who doesn't know what's happening, at no point does he think, why do I keep putting sand around my bed? Like, so when he's going to bed, is it really, I don't think it's
to show if he's sleepwalking, right?
no, I know that, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think it's Stephen Grant that's doing it. I don't think that the person going to bed is Stephen Grant, because Stephen Grant seems to be really freaked out by a lot of things happening around him. And the person that's going to bed seems to be very methodical and putting the tape over. And so I don't know. I was just like, I think that they're laying a foundation for different things that I'm hoping that they're going to explain down the road. But yeah, man, listen, I've already spoken enough. You know my feelings. I just thought it was well done. I agree with John. Donna was hilarious. And I'm glad that she's getting the hate because she's performing well. Like, she's performing her role well. So
she's like chewing the gum, just to be extra annoying.
And then she was like, you're knacking at me, right? And she just like and I was like, I know some British friends, like I have English friends, and they do that, and I was like, oh, that's very like, yes. So
that the one thing we have to say about the show, not only the production costs, they spent money on songs. Bob Dylan, Wham, like Humperdinck, like they spent money on
Humperdinck.
Yeah, Lord Humperdinck. Spent money on, and that's another thing too for the show. It's like, are you spending money on songs? And if you are you going for the big stuff? And when that action sequence, when Wham came on, Wake Me Up, like that was so pitch perfect, kind of just like, all right, is it on the radio? Is it a dream? Like, so I thought that they when they do things kind of right, they really go for it. Andre, what are your thoughts? And full spoilers, of course.
Okay, so yeah, let me go into a little bit of what I did like. So there was a couple moments. So I did like the attention to detail that they went all in with the whole, I'm gonna tie myself to the bed, I'm gonna tape the door, I'm going to try and get to sleep. And he gives a line early on, I think, when he's talking to his mom on the phone or leaving a message for his mother on the phone. He's like, oh, I never feel like I'm rested, and I always feel like I've been hit by a truck or something along those lines. And I'm like, okay, so that's cool. So there's definitely, some body transitioning that he's going out and fighting and stuff like that. So I really like that part, especially the second time where he sees them when he's putting down the sand and then the Rubik's Cube and stuff. But I will say that those moments, the replay of them was too long. We're not idiots. Show it to us once, we get it. I think them repeating those things so often, like, you're wasting my time. I don't mean my time. You're wasting your time, because if you cut that scene by a minute and you cut those Donna scenes, like, okay, I'm glad you guys liked it, but one of them was enough. I didn't need 3 minutes of that because it's inconsequential to anything, and all these shows always end up
unless it turns out to be all her all along.
Yeah, like it's just like the shows, and to me, it's like you chose 2 minutes of that instead of building the character. And then I did like the quick cut to all the guys being down on the ground around him.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that part. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about Moon Knight and who he is. He's a very serious character in the comic books and stuff. And I would go so far as he is dark. He's not Punisher dark. He's not like, but he's a dark and serious character. So I really question the making it so humorous. Now, where it totally lost me was, here, take the stone, take the scarab, take the scarab. I'm not doing it, right? And then you hear the voice, and I'm with John. It has that Venom vibe. He's like, oh, the idiot's back in. And if Khonshu or whoever has the ability to not make him give the thing, why couldn't he just flip the switch? Right? This is his avatar. He's going to be shot. He's getting chased. And he doesn't.
The avatar, the way that's set up, I think the avatar is Mark Spector. You can control Mark Spector.
No, I disagree, because at the end,
my question, I'm like, how much power
him,
does he have over him that he can
control? In the comics, Mark Spector says at the end, let me out. Let me out. We can survive if you let me out. The avatar is a different voice. right?
I think in the order of operations in the comic book, it's Mark Spector is the first body, and then Stephen Grant and all of them are 2 and 3. But I think in this show, they might be positioning as Stephen Grant is the first personality, and then he had a disorder, and then all of a sudden, the Spectre, the Avatar is Mark Spector. So that's why you can't control. There's something
but I would-
weird about the order of operations.
I would say, okay, that's good that you picked up on that. But again, the Mark Spector persona is who Ethan Hawke knew. He said to him, "Oh, Mark Spector, mercenary," right? And then the Stephen Grant persona, he's like, "Oh, I can't believe that was true. Can't believe you work here." And I would also argue that when he's leaving the message for his mom, he's like, "Oh, I guess you're out again." His mom doesn't exist because Stephen Grant is fictitious. Stephen Grant has no mother. So it should be part of his psychosis. Now, if they have chosen to do what you said and flip it to Stephen Grant, again, I would question the use of why have a useless persona that doesn't do anything. Now, at this point, it is just let's make him a joke so that it can contrast with the mercenary persona, right? So yes, they could find a way to make it jive, but to me at this point, now you're working extra hard, right? You've got this source material that exists in a certain way. Now you're working really hard to make it all fit together because you're saying, oh, we want this show to be accessible and haha Marvel Universe funny, when the first scene is a guy stepping on glass and murdering somebody. So again, juxtaposing forces. Is it a comedy? Is it going to be an action? Am I supposed to take it seriously? Where am I supposed to be? My last little gripe would be the thing I didn't like again was the end battle scene. Like, oh, there's a dog in the museum, and you're here, boy. How's there a dog in the museum? Or why is nobody else hearing this dog? Then the dog comes out, chases him, whatever. And
it's a jackal.
A jackal, yeah, Egyptian,
like the Egyptian,
some type of a hellhound.
Yeah, well, it's better than the visible hellhounds of Supernatural. I'll give you that one. Just shows their feet, and then the person just dead on the ground. I'm like, well, Dean survived the invisible dog attack, so
we got to give him credit. But so then I did like what Rob brought attention to. If you look at the mirrors on one side, there's a lot of reflections. On the other, it's just Mark Spector. And I like that attention to detail. But then when his costume manifested, I was just like, wow, I'm out. Like that to me was just.
Well, you didn't really get to see it because the camera.
No, you saw it. You saw it growing.
You
like
saw a
Venom.
couple. Yeah. You saw a couple come out, and then the camera pans away, right?
Yeah, but then you see him beating the guy, the dog or whatever after and stuff, and I'm like, wow, of all the things to do and to keep, and then again, Moon Knight, he puts on a suit like Batman. It's there. It's cool. It works. Now you've pushed in this whole other supernatural like element and stuff, and I'm not saying it's terrible, but I was just like. Yeah,
I had the whole Iron Man shortcut.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, here's the thing. I think Andre, you hit the nail on the head because remember there was a time when everyone was like, "Oh, Moon Knight's just basically Batman. He's an offshoot. He has a moon cave. He's a rich billionaire. He like Batman also persona where he's a cabbie. Batman also is a cabbie at night. Like everything kind of was way too.
He has a butler.
He has a butler, like who is I think is his butler Jean-Pierre is Frenchie, right? Is that the butler?
Frenchie, yeah.
Frenchie's the butler. So like he had too many similes to Batman, and now they're like, well, let's go the other direction because he was like the Dark Crusader at night, only comes out at night. He has almost the exact same look as Batman, shooting his moon instead of batarangs, like moon shurikens at people. So yeah, there was kind of like, oh, this is a ripoff. So they're clearly going, well, let's go a different direction. No one ever calls Batman an idiot. And Batman's super cool. So we're going to go opposite directions. So you'll never imagine these two being the same characters.
Yeah.
I agree. It's a different look. I think we all have to know that this Marvel series is unlike any other series to date because one, Ethan Hawke and Oscar Isaac were really involved in the production, the idea of crafting these characters. This is the first time that Oscar Isaac is not in a Marvel like mega deal. Like he's only in 6 episodes. He's done. He doesn't have to do any more. Marvel's now changed the format, going instead of signing someone up for a 9-picture deal, we're just saying sign you a project to project. If you like us, we like you, we'll continue. If not, if you really don't like it, you can leave. And they're now going maybe to the detriment to allow actors to really do something different. Maybe Oscar Isaac wanted to do this type of weird, had input to do these characters a different way. And that's, for him, he's talked about how much he's loved the experience of being able to do multiple characters and do an accent in these things. That's the same reason why Stanley Tucci was in Captain America. He's like, I always wanted to do a German accent. Like, everyone has vanity projects, and that's where Marvel's at. It's like, if you want the really good actors, you have to give them something to do other than, because we can do brooding, but there's only so many brooding guys that can do that Batman character, and there's only one Batman right now. So I think it's kind of interesting that they're changing this formula. John, do you see this as a brilliant move by Kevin Feige, or is this destined to fail? The fact that you're like no longer the golden handcuffs is what Oscar Isaac called it.
You mean just allowing them to do whatever they want with this character, or
have more input, but also not stick them to like movies, TV show deals, like because before.
Oh, so the whole deal thing, I think it's a really good kind of natural evolution. You don't want some of the we've seen it happen once the star gets to the 3rd movie, they're like, oh, they're totally phoning that in, or they're not. You can clearly tell they're not happy with whatever this deal is. So it makes sense, and I feel like we got to get away from this. Like, this character plays this character forever, like, and we can't swing someone else in and try something different, like like James Bond. Rob always mentions he liked it when they would just have different guys for different movies and stuff, and maybe the same guy would come back a couple movies in a row. So I think it's good, and it sounds, I guess, good contractually and money wise and all these other types of negotiation and logistics wise. Yeah.
Rob, your thoughts?
Yeah, I just took a quick so Oscar Isaac's 43, right? So these are the things, when we talk about these actors signing these deals.
He looks good for 43, by the way.
He totally does. No, I agree. Listen, Ryan Reynolds is up there as well. Andre's favorite guy. I think he actually has that signature tattooed in his arm. But they're he's 43, and you got to figure out how many years does he really have to be able to be in this role. And so I think to sign him for a 6-picture deal, 9-picture deal with the way that production is going, I don't think it makes any sense. You give him the 6. Hey, do you want to do something else? We can tie you into another movie. I think at this point we have to trust in Feige that they know they probably have a 10-year plan of where they're going. And so it may or may not factor into Moon Knight. Maybe partially, who knows? But it is what it is. It's fine. If all we get is 6 good episodes, then there you go. Then who would have thought? Like, we're sitting here and either liking it or kind of quasi liking it on a Moon Knight TV show. But like, let's all jump in the TARDIS and go back 30 years. We'll be like, wait, there's a what? You get what type of TV show? There's a She-Hulk show coming out as well, and you get Thor movies. Like, this is we're living in a world that we never would. We only dreamed of this shit happening, and now we're getting it, right? So we're yeah.
It's
But that
yeah.
doesn't mean we shouldn't be like critical of it. Just getting it doesn't cut them the slack to
we
say,
agree. But we got a crappy Captain America movie. We got a crappy Nick Fury movie. We had a crappy back in the 90s. We got a bunch of those crappy movies too. Like, that were just like Marvel was bankrupt and they just had to make stuff. We had Generation X and all these the Flash.
That's fantastic. What are you talking about?
Remember Blade? We had stuff. Like, we're not saying, oh my god, a Blade TV show. We got a Blade TV show. It was on Spike TV. It was not good. So
but I also think we also have to remember, and I hate to say this, guys, we're old, right? Like, we are not the target demographic for these properties anymore. They are making these shows for a wide range of eyeballs, including us, but we're on that far spectrum of the eyeballs that they really care about. They're making it for the teens right now who will have a longevity to adhere to these Marvel movies for the next 10 to 15 years, so that when they're into their 30s, they're like, oh, I've been doing this for like 20 years. or whatever.
Pot
That's
committed,
just
yeah.
unfortunately that's just not us anymore. And
But
it really
I don't know.
sucks.
I don't know, Rob. Like if you think about like I kind of appreciate that, but I really think that and Moon Knight's a perfect example of this. If they were really going for a younger audience, Ethan Hawke, no. Nobody under 20 knows who that dude is. And I would even say, aside from Dune, Oscar Isaac, what I'm trying to say is Marvel hasn't been casting young people in
Star
any
Wars.
of their roles. If anything, they are going for the 30 plus crowd. Sure,
Right.
your kid's going to go see it because you're into it. I don't think your son would be, if he wasn't your son and you weren't into this stuff, I don't think they're into it. Now, I don't know who I would have cast to be like, oh, you could have cast a 29-year-old dude as Moon Knight. You know what I mean? You could, you say, well, hey, let's just get a dude and he'll be a heartthrob or whatever. Unfortunately, I'm not up into my
but that's why they have Harry Styles. That's why they have Harry Styles as Silver Fox or whatever his name was. Right?
I think the age thing is not quite it. I think Rob's right with they're trying to cast a wide spectrum. So I think that's more.
I think
the thing
at
to
this
focus
point
on.
I think to your point, Andre, you cast the best actors because that scene and what I really appreciate with Oscar Isaac, and I rewatched it 3 times. That whole scene where he's holding the scarab and moving, and his face is doing something completely different.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's not CG. He's that is proper
physical
acting,
comedy.
where he is dragging his feet, doing things, and you can see it, and you're like, oh, okay, this is what a classically trained actor can do. And I think I think he had reservations. Of course, he's in a Star Wars franchise that no one really liked, and he was like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do this again. So I think you had to kind of make some I guess agreements with him in order to do a Marvel project. It's like, okay, well, we know he got burned, but we really want you to do this film or this project. I think it's worth your while. So I don't know if it's for the kids, but I think, Andre, to your point, is that Marvel's at the point now where they're going to constantly make weird vanity projects that maybe Kevin Feige is all he wanted to do. And I'm fine with that. If he wants to make these weird shows, great. I'm sure the people will watch it, not the people that are watching The Mandalorian. But at the end of the day, what is Disney's goal? Is to keep subscribers and get the content coming out. And if Kevin Feige can keep on mining these characters and bringing it out and producing more content for Disney Plus, then shareholders are happy and he has more clout to get what he wants. Because eventually he'll put in his chips on the table and say, I'm Kevin Feige, I'm making this decision, and that's it, or I'm out. So he's kind of building that equity. Because I'm sure there'll be a moment where he'll have to say, I want to do it this way, and I've earned it. So I think there's a lot of options. Before we finish off, do you have any predictions, Sean, before we go, of the show? Do you have any ideas, any predictions before we leave?
So the most basic prediction is episode 2 is just going to show the flip side. So basically, you're going to see Mark Spector in the same day, I guess. Which I don't know if it's gonna be as interesting for everybody. I don't know if they're gonna be down with this kind of retreading it. But yeah, other than that, I don't really. I feel like that's just an obvious answer. So I don't really predict anything for these types of shows, really.
Rob?
Yeah, I don't have a prediction just as of yet. I mean, obviously, we're going to get a lot more of the costume. We're going to get a lot more, and we're going to explain the Mr. Knight stuff. I'm not familiar with that at all. I know of him, but I have no real understanding of the source material. So I'm looking forward. They're promoting it. You see the one.
It's on the poster, yeah.
Yeah. So you're like, okay, cool. So I'm looking forward to that. I do hope though that they do explain this dissociative disorder. And I know this sounds stupid, but this is going to be a lot of people's first introduction to that disorder, right? Andre and I are of the same age where our probably first introduction was the 3 Faces of Eve when your English teacher showed you that movie on the reel-to-reel machine, right? The 1957. And then, you had, was it Primal Fear, right? With Richard Gere. And so I'm kind of hoping that they explain that for that teen, and the uninitiated who don't understand what the multiple personality disorder is. Because I think that's if they explain that in the show, I think that adds a hell of a lot to the character, right? We know it, but for those who don't, I think it'd be really interesting to see how they explain that.
Andre?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I don't really know what type of story they're trying to build from this particular episode. I hope for myself it gets better, but I'm going to predict that it won't. Like I don't foresee any of these episodes, unfortunately, getting anything above like a 6 for me. But I'll chew on my old shoe if it does. And the reason I say this is because, again, Moon Knight, like we did mention the early comparisons to Batman, but what really set him apart were these personas and who he was. Like, legitimately, Batman would just disguise himself as Matches Malone, but Moon Knight became, Mark Spector became these other people. And as the series went on, before it wasn't multiple personality disorder, but it really became that. And especially Warren Ellis's run, where he introduces the Mr. Knight and stuff, you really got that sense. And I guess from what they've shown me, I don't have a lot of confidence that the showrunners and the people writing it truly had enough of a grasp of what's going on in order to pull it off on the stage, on the screen well. I hope that they respect the material enough to be like, yeah, we're going to give it our all. And as John said, maybe Ethan Hawke's character isn't even really the big bad or the big, whatever. So I guess I'm going to hope for myself. Let's get to Mark Spector. Let's find out who is the prime persona and see if they can explain how the ancillary ones work. That's what I hope they get to.
I feel that, I think, Andre, to your point, this is not, based on episode 1, this is not a Warren Ellis Moon Knight. So I know,
definitely, yeah.
As long as we appreciate the fact that this is an MCU, whatever universe they're going to use, perception of Moon Knight, then that's fine. I think the rich history of Moon Knight is that each personality reflects different type of moons, half moons, full moons. There's a lot of depth to that character in that way. I just think that right now they're not really focusing too much on that, and we'll see what happens. I think Arthur Harrow is one of those characters where the best villains are the ones that truly don't think they're evil, and right now it doesn't look like he's that evil, because that whole dialogue tree that he had was like, is this basically like Minority Report? Basically like every story of like, what if the prediction of the future, I could stop all the bad guys from doing bad things before they happen. It's like, that's not how it works. Like, this is the storyline. It's basically like, Andre, Moon Knight has to stop the guy that is basically the children of Minority Report. It's like, this is the story, and if we are all agreeing that's pretty much what it is, that's what the story is, because Arthur Harrow wants to resurrect a god that basically is judge, jury, I am the law, Judge Dredd, a precog, right? And basically decide, well, you're a bad person. And that's an example of the old lady going, well, I haven't done anything wrong yet. It's like, not yet, you haven't. And then takes her Shang Tzu, takes her soul away, Mortal Kombat.
Your soul is mine.
Your soul is mine. So, I can see that him being his persona of you not being bad. It's interesting because I don't know what this show is really weird, because what year does it take place? Where is in the MCU?
Apparently
he's got a Motorola Razr.
It's weird. I don't know when this happens.
The producers came out and they said this takes place after the events of Hawkeye. So,
all right.
But Oscar Isaacs and Ethan Hawke didn't want to be tied to the main MCU continuity with things going on, which is why when Ethan Hawke's giving his soliloquy about what this Egyptian god, what he didn't step in to stop this and Pol Pot and this, he didn't say Thanos or anything else. Like, he stayed very far away. He made these real events of historical events of horrible brutality, and he didn't mention any of the MCU stuff. But apparently it does take place following the events of Hawkeye. So
it's an interesting look at where they are in the universe. Like, again, it's one of the pluses about the Marvel years before was we can get a guest character come in. But if this is just 6 episodes not tying to any of the Marvel stuff, this is what it'll be interesting to see, this case study, because this is what DC does, where you don't really have to watch the show. It doesn't matter. while you watch the Marvel shows, because they're all connected. So I'm wondering what this thought exercise is and whether it works for Kevin Feige or not. And it's a write-off. If it's like, it doesn't matter. Moon Knight didn't work out for us. He's part of a different universe. We'll bring in another Moon Knight. It's all good. Not Oscar Isaac, and we can do whatever we want. I'm fearful of Mr. Knight just being. My fear is just like, he's just here for like a split second, and then like he's just, of course, he's here, and then we're not going to really see him again. So I feel like we're going to be all let down by Mr. Knight. He'll be like there for like 3 minutes and then not show up again, and that's fine. Like, I guess there's a promo photo of him wearing the suit, but I don't feel like he'll be any of the Mr. Knight that we know.
The very end of the last episode.
Yeah, like I feel like it's just
on,
like
sits down at the desk, and that's it.
That's a bit, right? Like even the thing where like I'm not gonna lie, the thing was like, like my avatars, like James Cameron, that movie. It's like no, the other Avatar.
The anime.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, of course. All right, like it is, as an actor, like just being able to be that stupid and goofy, like you don't get that opportunity to do that often with this type of money. So I agree with you, Anjay. The tone is weird, but it's kind of like Tom Cruise.
What if Mark Spector is similar though? What if Mark Spector is just in glimpses, and the main character is just this goofy dude? That's going to be really awkward.
I think that's like because right now Tom Cruise, you can't say no to him. He's like, I want to jump off a cliff, and like I want to fly helicopters. Like, okay, done. Like, you can't say no to Tom Cruise. He makes money. So
Katie Holmes did, but.
Movies. Like he hurts himself all the time because he's like, I'm gonna do these stunts, and no like stuntman. I'm gonna do it myself. And they're like, I'm gonna fly this helicopter by myself and film it. And they're like, oh sure, Tom, do whatever you want. So we'll just to see because now the stars are having more opportunities to do things. Anyways, John, Andre, where can they find you in the internet and the desert of the real?
Yeah, so if you're looking for us online, our social media is very active. Our Facebook and Instagram have updates almost every day. So Heroes World Online, you can find us there. Same with the website, and that will link us to our email. You can let us know whatever you need. We'll set you up. And if you're listening to this on the audio, Heroes World Podcast on Spotify, iTunes, any of your major podcasting platforms, help us out. Give us a 5-star rating if you like our content, and give us a review if you have a chance. And Andre's got where you can find us in the desert of the real, as he likes to say.
Yeah, so right now we are at Warden and Highway 7, 8601 Warden Avenue. Conveniently located, lots of parking, easy access to get through, lots of amenities in the plaza. You can tell your significant other you're going to No Frills to get some milk and bread, but you're really coming to the hobby and comic shop to get all the new issues, all the new games, be it
the real
Magic Gathering, Warhammer, miniature games, board games, Dungeons and Dragons. We have a little bit of everything and a great setup. We're constantly bringing in new stuff, so we can guarantee that there will be something that you'll enjoy. So come see us in person.
Rob, what's going on the Sidekick show this week?
Hey, so for those who participated last week's Sidekick show,
It was
John and I did our top 5 most rewatchable movies. We had a whole bunch of people who were talking about what their most rewatchable movies were. So if you haven't had an opportunity to check that out or listen, go back and check that out. But because of that, this Monday at 8:15 live on the YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook feeds, we are doing a rewatch of There Will Be Blood. The Paul Thomas Anderson movie with Daniel Day-Lewis. It's one of my personal favorite movies. John has never seen it. John, I don't know what he was expecting, sent me a text today rife with expletives. All right. And
that was me, Rob.
Saying this is 2.5. He's like, this is 2.5 hours. What are you, crazy? And I'm like, I'm telling you, it's a brilliant movie. I will drink your milkshake. So check it out. There Will Be Blood. Join us Monday, 8:15. The Heroes World Sidekick Show, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch.
So art house. Kudos to you, John, for watching it. I can only watch it once every 5 years, and like once it gets into your mind.
I think it's coming up on its anniversary, probably like 15-year anniversary. Really.
Yeah, it's a heavy ass movie, man. It's too heavy. I was like, oh my.
No, it's amazing. So good, so good. I love it.
It's okay, cool. All right, well, thanks for joining us today. We'll see you all next week. Peace out, everyone. Goodbye.
Take care, you guys. Thanks, dude. I can't find the button.
And now John gets to